All right, in the race to build truly intelligent AI, a brand new contender has just stepped into the ring. And what's interesting is it's not from one of the usual big tech players, but it is making some serious waves, challenging the top models on their own turf. The craziest part? It's completely open source. So today, let's break down exactly what GLM 4.5 is all about.
Okay, here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the big challenge these new models are trying to tackle. Then, of course, we'll meet GLM 4.5 and see how it was made. After that, we'll dive into the test results to see how it stacks up against the big dogs. And finally, we'll talk about why this whole thing is such a huge deal for AI.
All right, first up, the ARC challenge. This is all about moving AI beyond just being a simple chatbot. You know, the goal for AI isn't just about creating something that can answer questions anymore. It's about building a real, honest-to-goodness problem solver.
So what does that even mean? What makes an AI a true general problem solver? Well, the ultimate dream here is to create models that can think and act with cognitive skills just like a human. You know, whether they're analyzing complex scientific data or managing a project from start to finish. It's about moving way beyond just spitting out answers to questions and actually doing things in the world. So how on earth do you even begin to measure that kind of intelligence?
Well, researchers have kind of boiled it down to these three key skills, and they've given it a cool acronym, ARC. First, you've got A for agentic abilities. That's the power to use tools, browse the web, and actually interact with the digital world. Then there's R for complex reasoning. Think solving tough math problems or tricky scientific puzzles. And finally, C for advanced coding. I'm talking about tackling real-world software engineering challenges. If you can master this trio, you've got something special.
Which brings us right to the star of the show today. Meet GLM 4.5. This is a new contender that was literally built for this exact challenge. So, the team behind this, Zipu AI and Tsinghua University, they actually released two different versions. You've got the flagship model, GLM 4.5, which is an absolute powerhouse with 355 billion parameters. And if you think of parameters as the little knobs and dials that control an AI's brain, that's a lot of knobs. But then they also released GLM 4.5 Air, a smaller, more compact version. And here's the kicker, both of them are open source. Now, the secret sauce here is really its architecture. It uses something called a mixture of experts model, or MOE for short. And the best way to picture this is to imagine the AI has a giant team of specialists on call, like a doctor for medicine, an engineer for coding, a historian for history, and so on. So when a task comes in, instead of firing up its entire massive brain, it just calls on the few experts that are perfect for that specific problem. And this makes it unbelievably efficient. And this is where you can really see that efficiency in action. Take a look. For any given task, GLM 4.5 only needs to wake up or activate 32 billion of its parameters. Now compare that to a competitor like Kimi K2. That model has over 1 trillion total parameters. That's 3 times bigger, but it still only activates the exact same amount to get the job done. So GLM 4.5 is basically getting the same level of performance with just a fraction of the overall size. It's doing more with less.
So how in the world do you build an AI that's this capable? Well, it definitely doesn't happen by accident. It takes a really intense, really carefully designed training regimen.
They actually trained it in 3 main stages, almost like you train a world-class athlete. First, they built this massive foundation of general knowledge, just feeding it tons and tons of data. Then they moved into specialization mode, really drilling down on the specific skills we talked about, like coding and reasoning. And finally, they focused on endurance, training it to handle long, complex, multi-step tasks and to act like a true agent.
And just let this number sink in for a second. 23 trillion tokens. Now, a token is basically a word, or even just part of a word. So we are talking about an amount of text, code, books, and scientific papers that's almost impossible to wrap your head around, all curated to build this incredible problem-solving AI.
Okay, so the training sounds intense, but how did it all pay off? It's time to put it to the test. Let's see how GLM 4.5 actually performs when it goes head-to-head with the biggest, most expensive closed-source models in the world. And wow, the results are pretty staggering. Now on this chart, we're looking at the overall rank, so a lower bar means a better score. And across all those critical ARC tasks we talked about, GLM 4.5 comes in at 3rd place overall. Yeah, you heard that right. An open source model is right there in the top 3, with the absolute best in the business.
And remember that efficiency we were talking about? This is where it gets just wild. It's hitting this top-tier rank while being way, way smaller. The The paper even notes it has just 1/3 the parameters of some of its rivals. It is truly punching above its weight class.
Okay, let's break it down by skill. Again, remember, lower is better on this chart. For agentic tasks, that's the ability to use tools and interact with the digital world, it's even stronger. It scores an incredible second place, right behind OpenAI's top model. This proves it's not just book smart, it can actually do things.
All right, how about coding? This is a notoriously tough nut for AI to crack. And again, it absolutely proves its mettle. It ranks third, holding its own against models that are famous for their programming skills. This makes it a seriously powerful tool for any kind of real-world software development. And finally, complex reasoning. Now pay attention here because this chart is different. It's showing a direct score, so this time a higher bar is better. And as you can see, it puts up an outstanding performance. It's right there in the mix, holding its own against the most advanced models ever created for solving those tricky multi-step logic, math, and science problems.
Okay, so we've seen all the data. We've seen the charts. But what's the big takeaway? Why does one more powerful AI model really matter in the grand scheme of things?
You know, this quote from the introduction of the research paper really says it all. For a long time, the AI community has been searching for a single, powerful, open-source model that could be a true all-star, excelling across all three of those key areas. That goal has been elusive. Well, until now, it seems. Look, GLM-4.5 matters for three big reasons. First, it delivers elite all-around performance. It's not a one-trick pony. Second, it does it with incredible efficiency, which proves you don't need a trillion parameters to compete at the highest level. And maybe most importantly, because it's fully open source, it puts this cutting-edge tech into the hands of researchers and developers everywhere, which is just going to accelerate innovation for the entire field.
And this all leaves us with a final, really fascinating question. For a while, it kind of seemed like the most powerful AI was always going to be built behind the locked doors of just a few giant corporations. But models like GLM-4.5, they suggest another path is possible. They make a really powerful case that the future of truly general AI might just be built out in the open by and for everyone. Something to think about.